So, how exactly are women going to vote this time around? Before we get started, I want you guys to know that this right here is the second video that's going to be released. Not today. Of course, I'm recording this video on Thursday morning. I'm going to be heading to the doctor's office a little bit later on this afternoon, or actually to the hotel in preparation for tomorrow's surgery. But of course, I may actually see the doctor beforehand. I'm going to be getting surgery on Friday, which is going to be tomorrow. And of course, this video here is going to be posted on Friday and making, of course, on Thursday. And to go on top of that there, I should be back home on Saturday, but still, you probably won't see me again until Sunday. I know it's Labor Day weekend. It may even be Tuesday. It just kind of depends on how I feel coming out of surgery, that type of stuff there. If you've ever been through it, then you quite frankly know what I mean. Still, though, at the same time, though, I want to go ahead and get this video out there so that way you guys can at least have a piece from it. It's a piece that I've been wanting to do for about the past couple of weeks, but I had to go back and re-look at a certain interview so that way I could kind of draw the comparison because, quite frankly, yeah, there are some people who just automatically assume that because Kamala Harris is the Democratic Party nominee that women are just going to vote for her in droves. I have said that single women probably will because single women, quite frankly, are a little bit more liberal. However, married women will more than likely run to Trump. And of course, I'll be talking about that in this video here as well. Also, not to mention, I got to draw back on a previous video that I did before. Now, guys, do you remember about 3 or 4 days ago? And I understand the YouTube algorithm doesn't want to promote small channels, especially small political channels or culture war channels during this particular time because it's an election year. Don't worry, in the updates video, I'll be doing a video on how exactly I plan to actually tackle everything post 2024 because obviously we're going to be going back to the original content and I'll be spreading this stuff over the channel. I'm supposed to be doing it this year here, but things got messed up. Don't want to be talking too much about that in this video here. But before we get started, make sure you guys go ahead and cut the notifications on for the channel. Also, go ahead and hit the like button for the algorithm. And also to go on top of that there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It's 100% free. Just put your finger right there. Just hit it and cut the notifications on. And let's go ahead and get into this. That's right, the video that I was talking about. So last week I released a video, kind of a reaction to the Brittany Mahomes backlash. You know, Patrick Mahomes' wife, she's kind of annoying. But, of course, she got one thing right. And, of course, that thing she got right was obviously her choice of presidential candidate. Let me kind of take you guys back.
But we knew that.
Yes.
She's got a massive profile herself. So, anyway, she liked, I think, a Trump post on Instagram. And Elon Musk, interestingly, has taken away the ability of people to check what you've liked on X. So you can't go through someone's likes folder anymore. It's blocked. In Instagram, you can see when people have liked something. And she is being absolutely bullied, monstered, they're trying to make her walk it back, apologise for liking this post, explain her behaviour. And so far, to her credit, she's just kind of laughing at them and saying, you're filled with hate, what's wrong with you? Which is...
How Sky News Australia was talking about this, I'll never know. But, of course, Brittany Mahomes, she got a lot of backlash for it. And I explained in that video that at the end of the day, most young married women or married women as a whole, especially those who are currently making money or with somebody who's making a lot of money, guess what they're going to do? They're going to vote for their family. They're going to vote for their family's security. And seeing how it is that the current Democratic Party nominee is the current vice president of the United States, one would automatically deduce that she is also culpable and responsible for the ridiculous amounts of inflation because obviously during the first 3 years or first 3.5 years, right before C19, the economy was booming under Trump. He got it going. The price of gas was down. And, of course, the price of food and everything was down. This right here is something that people do, in fact, think about, especially women. They typically don't tend to be as open. And, of course, to go on top of that, some people will automatically assume that a lot of suburban women are more agreeable. I agree with that to a certain extent. But at the same time, though, I also understand that, yeah, there's also this thing called feigning agreeableness because they realize that in the situation that they're in, when they're being berated by people calling them racist constantly, even though they're not racist, they realize that there's no way to win. You're going to hear me say this more than once in this video before we get to Umar Johnson because of what he had said 2 weeks ago on the Art of the Dialogue show about white women in particular. But you're going to hear me say this right now, and I don't care if it gets me a dislike button or not. Only women understand other women, and they absolutely hate each other. I'm not saying that to be mean to women. I love y'all. I really and truly do. It's an Al Bundy quote, but for whatever reason, that quote today looks like it's becoming more and more true. So About Umar Johnson. Well, people call him Dr. Umar Johnson. He's not a guy who's a conservative. He's not a Republican voter. He seems to be, how do I say, not exactly on the side of voting for Kamala either. He's not exactly one of those guys who thinks that you have to vote for somebody based upon the actual skin tone. And while I don't agree with him on a lot, he does make a very good point with this little segment here.
She spit in the face of the family of Michael Brown, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Amir Locke, Dante. We can go on and on. Tamir Rice, all the Africans murdered by police, which are state-sanctioned executions. Let us be clear. The police are agents of the state. When the police kills a black person, that is a state-sponsored execution. And in response to all this racism, the execution of George Floyd, this part-time black woman says America is not racist. And when I say part-time, Art, I'm not poking fun at her because she's being mixed race. I want to be clear. I'm poking fun at her because she can rarely be found speaking up for black people.
The point that he's making is that you just don't vote for Kamala Harris because she's black. That right there is the point that he's trying to make. All the other stuff about spitting in the face of this family and that family, let me just go ahead and tell you right now. If I go through each and every single individual case, you will find out that the cops were right. I mean, if you guys remember correctly, there was hands up, don't shoot Michael Brown. And of course, the video footage had shown earlier that day he had actually bullied a smaller man in stealing his stuff from the store. The kid was not a good kid, okay? The Trayvon Martin situation is actually a very good video. It was made called The Trayvon Hoax. I've asked you guys to go check it out. Maybe I'll link it in the description box. You'll find out that these were not just innocent little babies that got shot by the police. I mean, hell, even Barack Obama's Department of Justice, DOJ, headed up by Eric Holder, found that the Michael Brown situation was Michael Brown was actually the one in the wrong. And that Officer Darren Wilson was actually correct. I don't know if Umar can get beyond this or not, and don't worry, we'll get back to women as a whole, but I don't think he understands that Kamala Harris, at the end of the day, she was a prosecutor. She's a cop, not a very good one. As a matter of fact, a very, very tyrannical one if you actually look at her record, but still at the same time, though, this is probably one of the reasons why it is that black turnout itself is probably going to be pretty low. Yeah, she's going to get a high percentage, over 80% of the vote there, but still at the same time, it's probably going to be low prop, not many coming out. But of course, this video right here is primarily about women, and she will see a spike in black women turnout. It's black males that she's having a hard time with, but in order for that massive turnout to get you over, you need black men to go along with it. Now, I talked about men in the previous video, the video that's out on Thursday, which of course is being done in the dark. But still, the point is this right here. There are a few things that Umar is in fact missing. Now, really quick, before we get to the next segment, Umar has a way of talking about things that might make you think that maybe he's not well-versed or well-educated. I don't think that's what it is. Sometimes some people will say something meaning something, and of course you kind of understand what they mean, even though it's not come out the way it's supposed to come out. I think that there's something that Umar could be going through. I mean, I refuse to call the guy a doctor. Other people do. But still, at the same time, though, bear with him on this right here, and let's go ahead and get the next segment.
Only for Native Americans? Why did y'all pass a law only for transgenders? Why did y'all pass a law only for LGBTQs? Why did y'all pass a law only for immigrants? If you can't do anything just for black people, this is what she said. It came out of her mouth. If you can't do anything just for black people, how was it possible for you and President Biden to do all these other things for specific ethnic groups in this country?
Before I say that Umar does not understand identity politics, I want you guys to know right now, I think he understands identity politics very, very well. I think what he's doing is he's showing you how it is that identity politics is just a disaster for the Democratic Party going forward. As I've said before, the Democratic Party relies on several single block groups, meaning several single issue voter groups. Black voters voting off of voting rights and additional entitlements. Don't get me started on that. And of course, when it comes to Hispanics, it's the ability to work and legalization and citizenship. Even though a lot of the Hispanics are coming across the border, because you're not going to be able to get them all out, even though the border wall obviously needs to be built, even though we got a migration crisis, which is actually replacing Umar's category. Those people at some point in time being very, very pro-family are going to look at the Democratic Party of today, and they're going to say, you people are absolutely crazy. Just take the money and run. Take the job opportunity and run. I'm calling it now. Yeah, it's a problem right now in the short term, and it's going to lead to some losses, but at the same time, it's probably going to be something that's going to end up backfiring on the Democrats long term. I think I did a video on this. I may do another video on it at a later date. But still, though, The fact of the matter is this right. The Democratic Party relies on individual voting blocks, and for some odd reason, they chose not to put black people forward, even though they're the biggest block. Well, Hispanics are now, but the black people have been the most loyal. Well, I think the reason why that's the case is because they know some things that I can't say here online, and to go on top of this, they already know that you will blindly go in there and vote for them, even though the turnout is going to be much, much lower. But then we get the topic of women.
As his support, but the party got to choose her in Chicago. But let's say Kamala Harris gets the Democratic Party nomination in Chicago the week of my birthday, August 19th, I believe the DNC begins, or the 17th. Anyhow, here's why they're going to go that way, Art. Why are the Democrats about to give us the first woman president in American history? I'm going to tell you why. In 2022, there were 10 million more women registered to vote than men in America. Now, I'm talking everybody, Art. Black, white, red, yellow, brown, gay, straight, everybody. There were 10 million more women.
Two things. Number one, he kind of gave away the game. The party chose. Nobody voted for Kamala Harris. Nobody chose her this cycle, okay? They keep acting like somebody voted for her. Nobody chose her this cycle, okay? So, yeah, the party chose. Biden gave her the endorsement after he dropped out. Many people think that he did that to kind of screw Obama over because it put Obama in a tight spot where he wouldn't be able to replace her. And, of course, a broker convention would have just been absolutely disastrous. I mean, look, the 2024 DNC was a disaster. I'm sorry, it just was. It was a base DNC. And, of course, you guys can see here in the B-roll footage what was going on outside. The fact of the matter is this right here. This place or this convention was a terrible convention. It could have gotten a lot worse. Oh, but then you get number two. Now, Umar talks not just about 10 million more women registered to vote, which, of course, is the game plan, is just to get all the women out, the single women, to go vote for Kamala Harris. But, of course, she's running into a bit of a problem there, which we'll get to here in a second, because obviously you guys know me. I got to kind of like switch gears for a second and go in a different direction. But the thing is this right here. In the country itself, it's roughly right around 169, 170 million women and roughly about 166, 167 men. I said 166 million men. That's what I meant to say. 170 million women, 160 some odd million men. That right there is the actual voter caliber balance. And of course, I talked about in the previous video how it was that Trump was actually gaining more and more men, and men who typically don't vote, and also men who are switching party from Democrat to Republican. You see, the point is this right here. Umar is thinking to himself that, well, Democrats are relying on those 10 million additional women to go out there and save the Democratic Party, and he's thinking that she's going to win a massive landslide because of that, which, of course, he ended up contradicting himself over the course of that interview that he did on the Hour of the Dialogue, which, of course, I'll link in the description box for you guys. But the countervailing narrative is that Trump has registered more and more men, and Trump is getting married women to go along with it. By the way, I want to go ahead and get this right out of the way. In 2016, Trump got 52% of white women, which is actually a good setup for this next clip I'm about to show you guys. He got 52% of white women. He didn't win women, but he got 52% of white women. They thought that white women would be the group that would overwhelmingly support Hillary Clinton, the thing that pushed her over. In 2020, with much, much higher turnout, Trump got 55% of women. He is currently at this moment in time polling anywhere between 43 to 45% with women, which is more than enough given the amount of men that Trump has got to completely stun the Democratic Party on election, not just by winning the states he's expected to win and the election itself, the Electoral College, but possibly the popular vote to go along with it. And maybe even knock off a few blue states that were close. I think that the Democratic Party has completely miscalculated, and I think that Umar has kind of like fallen into the little trap of what I just said. He believes that this right here is what's going to happen, when in reality, he hasn't been keeping up with the other side of the aisle. I mean, you still need to see exactly what the other side is doing and stop focusing on just your own, which sometimes gets me in trouble here on this channel. I'm not going to lie to you. And sometimes staying on one side, sometimes you just got to learn how to balance things. But I said something about white women earlier in this video. I said at the end of the day that white women would ultimately end up choosing the money, the safety, security, and they'll probably think to themselves, this has been an absolute disaster, and she's a part of the administration, and to go on top of that, she's not exactly competent. And their one out, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he recently dropped out and endorsed Trump. Which makes this minute and 30 some odd seconds from MSDNC, which I played in another video a while back, makes so much more sense. Let's roll this.
President Harris compared to President Biden in terms of competency and experience.
think she's worse. She doesn't even know what's going on at the border.
Right.
And that's what she was
supposed to be doing
and in charge of. I mean, as a school teacher, if I did not do what I was supposed to be doing, you better believe my job would be in jeopardy. Well, it isn't. Not only was her job not in jeopardy, she was just handed a promotion.
Is there anyone that Kamala Harris could appoint as her vice president that you would find reassuring, would make you consider voting for her?
No. Never consider voting for her. No.
I would do RFK Jr. way before her.
Same. Absolutely.
Yeah. And she's not the first woman to run for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming no one voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's not necessarily going to sway you to vote for a woman in office. When do you think America will have a female president?
When there's a competent one.
I don't get a good feel for her.
I think she's an idiot.
Right.
Mary, why do you think that she's not that bright?
Because she hasn't done anything in the time that she's had. We don't know anything about her as far as her 3 years so far in the White House. She's not real smart.
Dumb. She's incompetent. She didn't deserve it. Look, there was a video that I originally pulled that clip from, or the video that I originally did providing that clip. It was more of a reacting to, but I played it all the way through so that way you guys could see. The thing is this right here. When you've got women saying she didn't earn it, you got women calling her dumb. And these, by the way, these right here are the actual women who decided the election. These are women in Wisconsin, working class, teachers, making less than $50,000 to $75,000 or $75,000 to $50,000 a year, making less than that. Typically, tend to be married, or they could be single, they could be divorced, have kids already. What I'm trying to say to you is that you have to get those women to go out and actually support her, and they don't like her. Look, you can get all the black women in the world to vote for Kamala Harris. You can get a high amount of Hispanic women to go vote for Kamala Harris, and you can get the baseline support of single women. But if you don't get these white working class women, guess what? You don't win the election, because you got to win the electoral college, not the popular vote. Yes, it's true. Some states have got a lot of single white women. They typically tend to be blue states like California and New York. What I'm saying is this right here. You got to win these women over. These are the women that you got to win over, which of course brings us back to Umar Johnson, who does kind of touch on this and somewhat contradicts himself. But let's watch.
If there's 10 million more women registered to vote than men in America across all race, colors, and class, if we nominate Kamala Harris as the Democratic Party's president, can she bring us those women votes, those undecided women? Kamala Harris bring us all the poor black women, the working class black women, the upper class. Can she bring us the white middle class women? Can she bring us the poor white women? They are banking on the fact that there's 10 million more of black America. The male-female gender balance is almost the same. I believe there's 168 million adult women in America. It is about 165 million adult men in America. So you only have a 3 million person discrepancy. Now, those 10 million votes, there's 10 million more women registered to vote than men are. Elections have been decided by votes less than 10 million. You've had elections.
Well,
you thought wrong.
They obviously thought wrong. They obviously banked wrong. You see, this particular political party is lazy. They've gotten lazy. They've got to the point where they're completely out of touch. So when you hear this last part, it makes you think to yourself, did these people just look at this at a prism outside of emotion? But let's play the last part.
Here's what it's going to come down to. Do white women prefer a woman of color or a white man? That's what it's going to do. White American women prefer to have a white man in the presidency or a woman of color? And you know what I think, Art? I'm not completely decided, but I would say to you, wasn't this question already answered for us when Donald Trump took on Hillary Clinton? Did not America's white women choose Trump over Clinton when it came time for the electoral college to cast their vote?
What I played for you guys earlier from the film Commando is true. They thought wrong. That's actually what happened. They thought wrong. Here's what's probably going to happen. Trump's probably going to see an increase with white women to about 57, 58% from 55. Why will he see that increase? Because there are more women getting married at this moment in time. Yes, the divorce rate is still high, but typically when you marry a woman, she tends to be, when she was single, tends to be a little bit more liberal, a little bit more open to voting Democrat. Once she gets to a serious relationship and she gets married, guess what she does? She begins to start doing what her husband does. Even sometimes being inside of a married relationship, even if she's the dominant party, she oftentimes tend to go where her paycheck is, where the kids are going to be better off at, who's the actual better person, who's actually saying the things I want to see. Look, there are two typical indicators of how an election is going to go, especially with an incumbent president in office, whether they're going to lose or not. Kamala Harris is not an incumbent president. She's an incumbent vice president. Those two factors typically tend to be the standard of living for people, and the second one would be safety. The standard of living for people has obviously been destroyed. Inflation's through the roof. People are having to take out a second, sometimes third job. Part of the reason why it is the employment numbers look the way they do, and they're starting to fall apart. The dollar's not going where the hell it needs to go. The economy, quite frankly, sucks. The price of everything's through the roof, and it's only gotten worse since Biden and Harris have been in office. The Trump administration got everything under control. It was good for about 3 years, but I may even do a video on that right there, why it is that the second term may not be, I'll put it this way here. The phrase, it gets worse before it gets better, exists for a reason. But the final point that I want to make is that the second part is, do people feel safe? You got a migrant crisis. You got the media telling us that crime is down. You've got politicians telling us that crime is down. Yet people who live inside these cities and these areas are, not exactly feeling what the media is saying. And they've also gone out of their way to manipulate the crime statistics itself. That's part of the reason why, as we talk about crime, I tell people to go talk to go listen to Sean Fitzgerald and all the other channels that typically tend to be a little bit more, better on the topic of crime. Black conservative perspective is pretty good at explaining it. Steven Crowder is actually very, very good at explaining. Always brings up the sources, and I get picked on all the time for being a guy who listens to Crowder. But still, the fact of the matter is, the crime denial is absolutely insane, and the statistics, of course, have been manipulated. Also, not to mention the fact that some crimes just aren't being charged. Well, if they're not being charged, they're obviously not going to go into the system. Some of the stuff is pretty daggone self-explanatory. I think at this moment in time, I think that Umar Johnson has kind of given this notion of women voting in droves for Kamala Harris. I think he's given it just a little bit more credence than it needs to be. Which brings us to the end of this video. Now, guys, I will be back on Saturday, back here on Saturday. You never know, I might be back here for tomorrow night. I mean, from what I understand, the surgery shouldn't take that long because unlike last time, it's under a more elective procedure. But still, at the same time, though, I should be back here on Saturday. The next video you guys see may be on Sunday. It could be on Monday. I understand it's Labor Day. Everybody's off. But still, though, it would just be a good old-fashioned updates video telling you guys what I'm up to and the plan for the channel for the rest of the year, because it will be September, final quarter for me. And then, of course, what's going to happen next year, because I've decided to forego the typical what I was going to do, which was the video essay stuff. I'm just going to create a channel for that because of the way the YouTube algorithm works. Like I said, this right here is basically my main channel, but for whatever reason, I think that other channels I create to go along with this can be a part of this entire little network here. And I think that right there will be the stuff that actually performs best. Still, though, please leave a comment in the comment section. We'd love to hear what you guys got to say. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, and I will see you guys when I get out of surgery.